Button nose. If you have a button nose, your unfair biological advantage is possessing an ultra-efficient respiratory heat exchanger engineered for high altitude or cold climate survival. Evolutionarily, compact nasal structures with smaller nasal apertures evolved in northern and cold, dry environments. Because your nasal passages carry a smaller cross-sectional area, incoming cold air travels over vascularized mucous membranes at an optimized speed, rapidly warming and humidifying dry air before it hits your lungs to prevent core thermal loss. Biomechanically, this smaller airway creates optimal nasal resistance, which forces deeper diaphragmatic breathing and increases oxygen absorption efficiency in your lungs. Socially, your feature activates what evolutionary psychologists call Kinchin schema, baby schema. Human psychology subconsciously links a smaller, rounded nose with high trust, vitality, and low hostility. People drop their emotional barriers around you almost immediately, feeling reflexively collaborative rather than competitive, giving you an effortless advantage in building rapport. Nature engineered your feature for rapid air thermal conditioning, deep respiratory efficiency, and instinctive social trust. Roman nose. If you have a Roman nose, characterized by a prominent bridge and a sharp convex profile, your unfair biological advantage is possessing an extended internal heat exchanger engineered for high-efficiency air conditioning. Biomechanically, your raised nasal bridge lengthens the physical pathway air must travel through your nasal cavity. This elongated geometry increases fluid turbulence during inhalation, forcing cold or arid air into maximum surface area contact with your warm, vascularized mucosal lining. This rapidly warms and humidifies air to body temperature before it hits your lungs, protecting delicate alveolar tissue from cold stress and infection. Socially, your facial geometry triggers automatic perceptions of high agency and leadership. In evolutionary psychology and facial morphometrics, strong central facial projection adds immediate structural definition and symmetry to the human face. Psychologically, people subconsciously associate these sharp, defined contours with emotional restraint, decisiveness, and high status, granting you a passive executive presence in social and professional settings. Nature engineered your feature for elite thermal air conditioning, pulmonary protection, and effortless structural authority. Bulbous nose. If you have a bulbous nose characterized by a fuller, rounded nasal tip, your unfair biological advantage is possessing dynamic airway stability engineered for continuous high-exertion airflow and physical resilience. Anatomically, a bulbous tip is built on reinforced, expanded lower lateral cartilages paired with a denser dermal matrix. This structural mass solves a major physiological problem during intense physical performance: dynamic nasal valve collapse. When you inhale deeply under heavy exercise, negative pressure can pull thin nostril walls inward and restrict breathing. Your reinforced cartilaginous framework keeps the nasal airway locked wide open under high negative pressure, ensuring uninhibited oxygen intake. Additionally, the thicker subdermal layer acts as a natural shock absorber, protecting delicate internal mucosal structures from physical impact and environmental stress. While sharp angular noses can subconsciously trigger threat assessment or hypervigilance in others, fuller contours lower social defensiveness. People naturally view you as dependable, approachable, and steady under pressure, making it easier to establish long-term trust. Nature engineered your feature for structural airway stability, impact protection, and grounded social trust. Wide nose. If you have a wide nose, your unfair biological advantage is possessing an ultra-low resistance intake system engineered for high-volume airflow and efficient heat dissipation. Evolutionarily, broad nasal geometry represents a classic adaptation to warm, humid environments, documented by Thompson's nose rule in physical anthropology. Because tropical air is already warm and saturated, your lungs do not require tight, narrow pathways for thermal conditioning. Biomechanically, your wider nasal aperture drastically reduces fluid resistance during inhalation. By expanding the radius of the airway, your body decreases the metabolic effort needed to breathe, allowing you to move high volumes of oxygen into your lungs with maximum speed and minimal exertion during intense activity or high heat. Socially, facial morphometrics demonstrate that strong, broad central features project raw vitality, openness, and physical power. Nature engineered your feature for maximum volume air intake, metabolic breathing efficiency, and magnetic vital presence. Flat nose. If you have a flat nose characterized by a lower nasal bridge and a smooth integrated profile, your unfair biological advantage is possessing a highly durable, low-drag airflow system built for thermal dispersion and structural impact resistance. Evolutionarily, lower nasal bridge heights represent an equatorial climate adaptation optimized for humid environments as detailed in physical anthropology's Thomson's nose rule. Biomechanically, reducing the projection of the nasal bone removes an unnecessary leverage point. While high-bridge noses are vulnerable to fractures under blunt force, your lower cartilaginous profile absorbs impact energy safely without breaking, granting you incredible structural durability. Furthermore, in high-humidity climates, your streamlined pathway reduces respiratory drag, allowing for rapid thermal release and low-exertion oxygen intake. Socially, facial morphometrics show that a low-bridge nose creates an open facial canvas that draws immediate attention to your eyes. Psychologically, smoother central features remove harsh, sharp angles that human optics interpret as confrontational. Nature engineered your feature for high impact resistance, efficient heat dispersion, and an approachable presence. Greek nose. If you have a Greek nose characterized by a completely straight bridge with zero humps or curves from root to tip, your unfair biological advantage is possessing bilateral airflow equilibrium paired with maxed out internal nasal valve geometry. While up to 80% of the population suffers from internal septal deviations or dorsal humps that create asymmetric resistance and single-sided airflow obstruction, your straight architecture maintains an even midline. Biomechanically, this keeps the internal nasal valve, the absolute narrowest flow-limiting passage in the human respiratory system, at its ideal anatomical angle. This guarantees an even 50-50 bilateral oxygen distribution through both nostrils, preventing localized airway collapse or chronic single-sided resistance under exertion. Socially, the Greek nose has served as the universal benchmark for classical facial symmetry since antiquity. Psychologically, human perception instinctively pairs this clean geometric order with emotional composure, intellectual clarity, and self-discipline, granting you an aura of calm, timeless authority. Nature engineered your feature for balanced bilateral oxygen delivery, uncompromised internal valve clearance, and timeless structural symmetry. Upturned nose. If you have an upturned nose characterized by a slightly concave bridge and a tip that points upward, your unfair biological advantage is possessing a directed vertical airflow trajectory engineered for enhanced olfactory sampling. Biomechanically, rather than drawing air straight horizontally back toward the throat, your nasal angle channels the incoming airstream upward into the upper chambers of the nasal cavity, directly toward the olfactory epithelium and superior turbinates. This upward trajectory accelerates environmental chemical sampling, granting you heightened olfactory sensitivity while maximizing air contact with upper mucosal membranes for efficient thermal conditioning. In evolutionary psychology, human optics associate this feature with high optimism, warmth, and vitality. Because an upturned profile removes perceived hostility from your face, people instinctively view you as expressive, charismatic, and emotionally accessible, making it easy for you to disarm tense situations and build quick rapport. Nature engineered your feature for directional air sampling and a disarming magnetic social presence. Which biological advantage did nature give you? Drop your nose shape and your ancestry in the comments.